accidentally discovered a family secret that was supposed to remain hidden forever. Now I regret it. I'll never forget the day my world shattered. One single moment turned everything I thought I knew about my family upside down. My heart still races when I think about it. The day I accidentally uncovered a secret my family was desperately trying to hide. A secret that should have stayed buried forever. It all started innocently enough. I went to visit my dad and brother at his place. Nothing unusual. But when I walked into the room, I saw something I was never meant to see. I'll spare you the details, but it was enough to make my stomach drop and my head spin. I remember feeling like I couldn't breathe. My hands shook. My dad, the person I trusted most in the world, was with someone he shouldn't have been. My maid. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, unable to process it, but the moment was burned into my memory forever. I wish I could say I handled it better, that I confronted him right there and then. But no, I ran. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing that made sense at the time. I found my brother, but to my shock, he didn't react the way I expected. There was no anger, no surprise, just a sort of resignation. He already knew. He told me he'd known for months. Months. And he didn't say anything. He didn't say a single word to me, to anyone, about it. He stayed quiet because he didn't want to hurt Mom. He didn't want to ruin her life, he said, and that's when it hit me. The weight of everything that had been building up beneath the surface. My dad, my brother, my whole family. Everyone had known and done nothing. My mother, the woman who loved him, who had spent years taking care of him, was being humiliated, and they hadn't lifted a finger to protect her. They kept silent, thinking it was easier that way. But it wasn't easier for me. I was crushed, confused, angry. It felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me, and I was falling into a hole I couldn't climb out of. How could my dad, the person who I thought would never hurt us, do something so betraying? How could my brother, someone I trusted more than anyone, just stand by and let it happen? I couldn't stop thinking about it. The image of my dad and the maid together haunted me. The way they were laughing, talking, how he was so comfortable. It felt like a slap in the face. The hardest part? Seeing my mom still defend him. Even after everything was out in the open, she kept making excuses. She said he was just confused. She believed that somehow it was her fault, that if she had been a better wife, this never would have happened. And that made me even angrier. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that none of this was her fault, but I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to tear her apart even more. So instead, I kept it all inside. I felt trapped, torn between the anger I had towards my dad and the sympathy I had for my mom. It was as if I was drowning and I couldn't breathe. I hated my dad for what he did, but at the same time, I couldn't bear to see my mom suffer. She was so emotionally invested in him that no matter what happened, she kept believing in him, kept supporting him. Even though I knew deep down that what he did was unforgivable, I didn't know if I could ever forgive her for supporting him, for enabling it. Days passed, and I found myself more and more disconnected from everything. School, friends, even my own thoughts. I was slipping into this numbness that I couldn't escape from. I felt like I was walking through life with a heavy weight on my chest, unable to share it with anyone, unable to speak the truth. It was harder to see my dad every time I went over to visit. He would act normal, pretend nothing happened, like everything was fine. And somehow, it made me feel worse. He didn't even seem to care about how much it was destroying the rest of us. How could he act so normal when I was falling apart inside? And my mom, she still tried to make everything seem okay. She'd still cook for him, still act like she was happy. I couldn't understand it. How could she forgive him so easily when I couldn't even look at him without feeling disgusted? But the real blow came when I found out that my brother had been dealing with the weight of this too. He had his own way of coping, and I wasn't sure if I was mad at him or just sad for him. He didn't want to face the truth, didn't want to accept it. He said it was easier to keep the peace, easier to pretend everything was fine. But was it really? It wasn't easier for me. I remember asking him, in one of the rare moments we actually talked about it, if he ever thought about telling Mom, if he ever thought about standing up to Dad. But he just shook his head, telling me that it wasn't his place. He didn't want to cause more chaos. And that's when I realized how deep the damage went. The whole family had become so good at pretending, at covering up the truth, so we wouldn't have to deal with the mess. But I couldn't live like that. I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong. It was killing me inside, and I didn't know how to fix it. The weeks that followed felt like I was walking through a fog. I couldn't shake the images of what I'd seen. I'd look at my dad and feel disgusted. I'd look at my mom and feel nothing but sadness. And my brother, the one person who should have been on my side, remained quiet. We all tiptoed around each other, pretending like we hadn't just uncovered a life-shattering secret. It wasn't long before the weight of it all started to feel unbearable. I found myself losing sleep, tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts I couldn't control. I couldn't focus on school. I couldn't even bring myself to hang out with friends. Everything felt so empty. The life I thought I knew had completely shattered, and I was left with nothing but the remnants of a family I couldn't recognize. I couldn't help but wonder over and over how my dad could do this to us, to my mom, who had always been the most loving, selfless person I knew. How could he betray her like that after everything she had done for him? How could he betray me, the daughter who looked up to him as a role model? I wanted answers, but I was too scared to ask. And then there was my brother, the one person who knew everything, who had watched all of this unfold but stayed silent. I didn't know whether to feel anger or pity for him. He had grown up in the same house, seen the same things, and yet he had chosen to protect the one person who had caused all of this, the one person who had destroyed the idea of family that we had once cherished. I tried talking to him again. I needed to understand. I needed him to see things the way I did. But the conversation ended the same way as all the others. Him telling me that things would be fine, that we had to move on and not dwell on it. He said Mom would eventually get over it. That's when I realized he wasn't just keeping the peace for Mom, he was keeping it for himself too. He was terrified of facing the truth, terrified of dealing with the fallout of Dad's actions. It was easier to pretend everything was okay, easier to live in denial. But it wasn't easier for me. I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. I couldn't keep putting on a brave face for my mom when I was falling apart inside. Something had to change. But I didn't know what. I didn't know how to fix it, how to make it right again. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much power my dad had over us, how much control he still had, even after everything he'd done. He had built this perfect image of himself, this loving, caring father who would do anything for his family. And it was that image that kept us all trapped. Mom, my brother, even me. We couldn't bring ourselves to face the truth because we were all still clinging to this illusion of what he was. But that wasn't enough for me anymore. I couldn't continue living in this bubble of lies. I couldn't pretend to be okay with it when I was anything but. I wanted to scream, to shout at him for everything he had done, for the way he had destroyed everything. But I couldn't. The silence in our house was suffocating. It felt like we were all drowning in it. I tried to confront him. I tried to sit down with him, to ask him why he did it, to get him to admit what he had done. But when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see guilt. I didn't see remorse. I saw a man who had gotten so used to getting away with things that he didn't think he'd ever have to face the consequences. It was like he didn't even care that his family was falling apart around him. And that was the moment I realized he was never going to change. I could feel my heart breaking all over again. But this time, I didn't feel the same anger I had before. I just felt empty. He didn't deserve my anger, my pain. He didn't deserve any more of my time or energy. The person I had known, the person I had loved, was gone. And as for my mom, she still supported him. She still made excuses for him. And for the first time, I realized I couldn't change that. I couldn't change the way she chose to see him. I couldn't make her see what he really was. Not when she was so deeply invested in the idea of their marriage, in the life they built together. It hurt more than anything, but I had to accept that. It wasn't easy, though. It never is. The anger and sadness that had been building inside of me didn't just go away, but I slowly started to let go. I had to. I couldn't keep carrying this weight with me. It was exhausting. I had dreams, goals, things that had nothing to do with this mess. I wanted to be a cardiologist, but how could I focus on that when my life felt like it was falling apart? Gradually, I learned to find peace in the little things. I focused on school, on the things that made me feel like I had control. I tried to reconnect with myself, to find some semblance of normalcy in all the chaos. And bit by bit, I started to let go of the love I once had for my dad. It wasn't easy, but I realized it wasn't worth it to keep holding on to someone who had betrayed me, someone who had broken our family. But the hardest part? The hardest part was watching my mom, still supporting him, still defending him. It was like I was losing her too. And that hurt in a way I can't even describe. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want to lose the person she had been before all of this. I'm still trying to make sense of it all. I'm still trying to find my place in this new reality. But one thing I know for sure, I'll never be the same. The person I was before I found out the truth is gone. And I'm left with a new version of myself, one who's stronger, more aware of the flaws in the people I once trusted most. Maybe one day I'll find peace. Maybe one day I'll be able to forgive my dad, forgive my mom for enabling him. But for now, I'm just trying to survive. And that's enough.